This is something very unsettling. I recently put a video out talking about how girls and women in gaming are typically disrespected because they're assumed to not have very much skill. I made the video coming from some of my own experiences playing with female teammates, hearing what they had to put up with from randoms, as well as from a number of videos that I had seen where people were talking about just the sheer disrespect that they got because they were girls. Now, I put the video up and I got some great feedback from it. I had some people chiming in saying, like, hey, it's not just disrespect in terms of skills, but also sexualization and objectification. A lot of women were facing unappreciated and non-consensual advances, very aggressive advances, where people were just sort of making them feel like they were just there to be looked at and they weren't actually human beings. And it's I don't know what to say. Unfortunately, we live in a society where we have pushed everybody to this point where we objectify, in many ways, not just women nowadays. Men are starting to get as equally objectified. Maybe not as equally, that's not the right wording, but with kind of putting this sexual image on a lot of men as well now, where it's just about sort of eye candy. And we're unfortunately creating this emphasis for people who don't have a good grasp on reality to think that they have some sort of claim to other people, especially celebrities and people who are putting themselves into the public eye and, in essence, giving themselves for other people's entertainment. And that's not the case. We don't get claims on people because of just these things. Let me get into the point of the video. Doing some research, I came across a very interesting discussion that was happening primarily between the three streamers, Pokimane, Valkyrae, or Valkyrae, I don't know how their pronunciation of her name is, but that and QTCinderella. Now, I found a lot of these videos separately, but ultimately found myself onto a Dexerto ad, which I'll link below, because it culminates a couple of the videos from Pokimane, Valkyrae, and QT that really sum up their opinions. But the content was basically the three of them talking about how they didn't feel safe as female streamers now. See, our first conversation starts with Pokimane. Pokimane was talking about dropping out of TwitchCon because of fears that she would not be safe. She talked a lot about her hate that she experiences from people on Twitter and on Twitch, and just how unsettled that made her feel. Now, let me get something straight to you right now so you can understand. If you put yourself in a room with random people, there is a very high chance that you're going to have a differing opinion from somebody else in that room. And I bet that if you started to debate that topic with them, you're going to notice there's a confrontation. Now, a lot of people, unfortunately, when you have that confrontation of ideas, they can get very passionate about their ideas, which can oftentimes lead to them acting out aggressively. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are at their core aggressive, hateful people, but when they get passionate about an idea, they can come across in a very hateful or aggressive manner. Now, there are people who take it too far and become hateful, aggressive people because of their devotion to their personal ideas, right? But that's something that you're likely to find. I know as a Christian, there's a lot of people who disagree with me straight off the bat because unfortunately some of my ideals are old fashioned. Now, I love everybody, regardless of whether they agree with my standing points or not. I want to clarify that for you guys. My community is full of people who are wonderful human beings. Not all of them do I agree with their choices, but they are still people, regardless of their choices. So I just want to get that out there quickly before someone thinks that I'm some, person who's going to hate someone because they don't agree with me. Not in the slightest. So, Pokimane, who is somebody who has millions of eyes on her at any one time, has that individual room effect wherein you can walk into a room of 10 people, there's a chance that somebody doesn't agree with you, right? So we're saying 10% of that room doesn't agree with you. 10% of Pokimane's room is hundreds of thousands of people. And unfortunately, when people disagree with you and they get passionate or aggressive about their disagreement, those people are going to be voicing their negativity a lot more than their positivity. You see this a lot with reviews on businesses. If you have a really good experience, you're not really going to think about, hey, I should, go out of my way to say something nice. No, you're just like, oh, this was awesome. But if you have a bad experience, what's your first thing that you want to do? You want to leave a Google review. You want to tell somebody about it. Same thing with these situations. People who love these people aren't necessarily going out and constantly saying, I support you, because it's just a constant. But the people who have hate and animosity, they are, right? So I want to clarify that so that we get a bit of an understanding of the climate surrounding, especially what Pokimane was talking about. Now, Pokimane went on to talk about then another thing. This year in America, I think it was this year, surely time hasn't flown that fast, but Charlie Kirk, a man who was very commonly known for sharing opinions that upset people, he was at a college event. He was at an event. If you've been living under a rock and you don't know about it, he was at an event and he was just sharing his opinion, Now, his opinions were against a lot of other people's, but he never incited aggression, violence, or anything of that hateful nature, although he did have very differing opinions from many people. But he, with full security, in a public setting, was shot. I hope that doesn't get me banned on YouTube to say that, but that's what happened. Now, Pokimane talks about Charlie Kirk's incident and says that knowing how many people are outwardly saying that they hate her online, why would she want to put herself in a public forum advertising where she's going to be, where there's the chance that all it takes is one person going too far and she's seriously injured? It was a very valid and scary point to make. Now, QT and Valkyrae, man, please don't butcher me in the comments for how badly I am saying their names, but they had similar conversations. They talked about how they were both afraid of going to TwitchCon and how they both very early on had said a soft, hey, they're in panic mode, they don't know what they're doing. Now, they did end up fully pulling out of TwitchCon, to my understanding, but early conversations, they were talking about how they just didn't feel safe. And they both also quoted the Charlie Kirk incident, which is fair. That rattled so many people in the US because, unfortunately, that was the climate of the environment. It was very chaotic. It's been a very chaotic year in America. And on top of that, though, they also commented on an incident that took place with a Japanese streamer. Now, they didn't disclose who it was. I'm fairly certain I did find the incident online. I don't know why they didn't reference the exact person, so just in case I'm missing something for safety purposes, I'm not going to mention them either, but if you want to look into it, you should be able to find it pretty easily. But there was a Japanese streamer who was attacked during a broadcast, and it's scary. Valkyrae goes on to say it just takes one person deciding to take things too far, and all of a sudden you've got this heavily dangerous situation. If we look at things, TwitchCon did go ahead in October this year. It's happened already. Emiru, who was a streamer who still went to TwitchCon, had something happen at the event after everyone has been talking for so long about how afraid we are of something happening. Emiru luckily was not injured, to my understanding, but she had somebody rush up on stage and sort of just grab her unconsensually. Nobody really saw it coming, whatnot. Security was quick to respond, apparently. They got the person out of there. But ultimately, if this person made it all the way to making contact with her, right? In that same instance, if this person was hateful, aggressive, or whatever, they could have caused serious harm because they made it all the way to her. A similar incident happened with an absolute maniac on the Wicked the wicked red carpet. He is a guy who apparently is very well known for intentionally going places he shouldn't and disturbing people. He's done it on a number of red carpets where he's rushed people, tried to hug them. He started off just by streaking on football games. And, this kind of behavior that we see from people that's only being further encouraged by these kinds of content creators who do this just to get views. They're people who know that if they do this, they're going to be the center of attention. It's attention seeking behavior. And unfortunately, these people are creating unsafe standards for everybody else. Because they're setting a precedent wherein somebody who actually is hateful now is thinking, hey, I can go do this. I can go touch this person. I can go grab this person. Which that thought process only takes so long before that's suddenly a thought of, I don't like this person's politics. I can attack this person. The As far as my understanding of the news surrounding Charlie Kirk, the person who did the incident wasn't someone who was radicalized into some kind of gang. It wasn't a big movement. It was one person with a personal viewpoint and decision to do what they did. That's my understanding. I could be wrong. Maybe I've missed some updates since the incident occurred, but that's my understanding. And that's where it's terrifying, because it only takes one person for all of this to just break down. Now, I know that the basis of this video primarily was wanting to talk about the extra level of disrespect and just inappropriate behavior that we see going towards women. But on top of that, this is further backed up. There was more streamers who backed out of TwitchCon. Hasan backed out of TwitchCon because of similar reasons, citing Charlie Kirk's assassination. This is unfortunate and obvious setback there. One, all the political incidents that have taken place. That sounds like a... No. I'm reading that right, sorry. This is what he was quoted as. There is, unfortunately, an obvious setback there. One, all the political incidents that have taken place, and two, how those political incidences have had pretty significant consequences in how much he can go out in the real world and socialize with other people. He's acknowledged that in his personal streaming, because to my understanding, Hasan is a very political streamer, he now can't go out into the world and do the type of streaming that he used to do, because it is significantly more dangerous for his well-being now that there is a precedent being set wherein if you disagree with people, you can go and attack them, right? Another streamer, Asmongold, I don't actually know how to pronounce his name right, but he's quite a large streamer. A lot of people will know him. You probably know exactly who I'm talking about. Said he's thinking to himself, do I really want to go to TwitchCon? You get people breaking their backs. So I'm not trying to get into any of that. He said, I'm staying home. They got the zoo over there. That is the zoo. And the streamers are the animals. Maybe the viewers are too. His whole point is that these streamers are being just turned into objects for entertainment. And a lot of people are no longer respecting that these are human beings that we can't just take a claim to because they create content. Sorry for my sneezing, guys. I think it's terrifying. I think there is so much happening in this space that is terrifying. And there's only so much that something like TwitchCon can do. Because at the same time, what would you do? The amount of restrictions that you could put in place ends up turning it into less of a human event. However, unfortunately, if we let people run free, there is the risk that it takes one person and all of a sudden you have a major incident happening. You know? I always used to love riding my bike around my neighborhood in the evenings as a kid. But any time I did that, I also ran the risk that it only took riding past the wrong person once and I could have been kidnapped. You know? I could have ended up in the back of a van because that situation, which was harmless so many times, where I never had any issues, one time was all it would have taken for there to be the wrong person in the right place, and I would have been in trouble. It's really terrifying to think about the climate of things right now. And this is why we do a lot of content that we do, like our Sparks challenge, trying to encourage people to start having slightly better behaviors. We talk about trying to encourage better behaviors in games, good sportsmanship, accepting rejection, and that you can't win them all. Because we definitely, between the types of entertainment and things that we're consuming, we're creating environments where people can become disillusioned to reality. They stop realizing people are people and they start to feel entitled in ways that they aren't. I'm not saying that that's everyone. I'm not saying that, don't watch TV, don't go on the internet because you're going to become a person who doesn't care. I'm just saying it is the reality of the situation. I don't see what happens at my wife's work. So if I don't ask her about her day or about what she's experiencing, I would have no way or understanding of seeing what's going on. You know, I wouldn't be able to say, oh, this is what happens in your workplace because I'm not there. And unless I have that information, I'm not going to understand it. The information that we're given by a lot of these celebrities and streamers is that they are people who are there for our entertainment because everything that they do is so precise and so organized to be for our benefit. If they do a press release, if they do a movie, if they're doing a meet and greet, and oftentimes we forget that they are not a commodity. So, guys, I want to know your opinion. I could talk for a very long time about this. I don't want to talk your ears off. Let me know. I think that what we're experiencing nowadays is quite scary. But there's only one way that we create a better tomorrow, and it's by trying to be better versions of ourselves. We started here. We started here. This is how we make real change. Change ourselves and how we react with the world, and hopefully, slowly but surely, we can help to infect everybody with that same mentality and create a better tomorrow. God bless, guys. Have an amazing rest of your day. And I really am excited to hear all of your opinions on this video if you made it this far. Thank you so much. Share this with somebody that you think would benefit from it. I'd love to be able to hear more voices on this topic. But until then, I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.